To my video on composite area and perimeter using squares and rectangles. So first we're going to look at the area. And area is the number of square units needed to cover a surface. And you have your formula sheet, so go ahead and look up the formula for rectangle and square. And you can see, hopefully you wrote down A equals length times width. And for a square, it's area equals side times side or side squared. So when you have a composite figure, we want to, of course, break it apart like we have here. And then, and I'll show you how to break it apart. And then we can sketch it to find the missing side lengths. And when we break it apart, okay, I could break it apart here or I could break it apart here. It doesn't matter, but I'm going to go ahead and break it apart right here. And when I sketch it, I'm going to go in order because I know that I'm missing this length right here, but I know all the other ones. I know this is 12, this is 12, this is 10, and this is 9. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the 12. So I'm going to start down here. Just anywhere you can start, just make sure it's towards the bottom. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And then I'm going to go 12 this way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And then I'm going to go 10 down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then I'm going to go 9 over. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Okay, then this allows me to complete the missing parts here. So now I know that this part is 3 and this part is 2. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and split it same part side I did here. Okay, so we know that this side is 12 and this is 10 and this is 9, this is 3, and this is 12. And we know that this right here, of course, is 2. So now we can look over here and we can draw our missing parts here. We know that this is 10, 12, 12, 9, 3, and 2. So now we can look at, here's a rectangle and here's a rectangle. So I'm going to start with this one. And I know that the length is 9 and the width is 10. So I'm going to write 9 times 10, which is 90. And then I'm going to use the rectangle formula again because I have a rectangle right here. And I'm going to do length, which is 3, times width, which is 12, and 3 times 12 is 36. And now a composite area combines the two areas together. So I'm going to do 90 plus 36, which gives me 126. And my label is feet squared. My label will always be square units for area, and that's because we're multiplying two units together, length times width. Or if we had a square, we would do side times side. Okay, now we are going to skip to the back here. Well, let's go over perimeter, and then when we do the back, we're going to do all the area first, and then we'll do all the perimeter. So perimeter is the total distance around a figure. And the attributes of a rectangle, that just means what it's made up of. The lengths are congruent. And also the widths are congruent. So that means opposite sides are congruent in a rectangle. Now in a square, we know that all sides are congruent. And when we find the perimeter, we need to make sure we count the number of total sides you have, total of sides, so you have the correct number of measurements to sum together, meaning to add together. So we know that we have 6 sides, so write this down. And then we're going to go back to the previous picture, which we already have labeled. So let me go back up here. And remember, we have 10, 12, 12. We had 3 for this one and 2 for this one. So now what I'm going to do, and I'll go back down and write it in a minute, I'm going to do 3 plus 2, and watch what I'm highlighting here, plus 9 plus 10 plus 12 plus 12. Okay, so let's go down and write that. So we said 3 plus 2 plus 9 plus 10 plus 12 plus 12. And that will equal 48 feet. Okay, let's skip to the next page here. And let's take a look here. So the first thing we need to do when we have a composite figure is to break it up into 2 parts or more. In this case, it's just 2 rectangles. So I'm going to mark it right there. And now I'm going to find the missing sides. Okay, I don't know this one, and I don't know this one. But if I look, I know that this whole side is 15, and I know that this part is 7. So if this part is 7, this part plus this part will equal this part. So I can just subtract. 15 minus 7 is 8, so I know that this is 8 yards. And then, if I look here, this whole side is 20, which means this side plus this side will equal 20. So I can just subtract. 20 minus 12 is 8 yards. So now I have an 8 by 8 and I have a 12 by 15. So now I can calculate the area. So length times width. So for the first one, it's 8 times 8, which is 64. And then for the second one, it's also a rectangle, so I'm going to do length times width again. And it's 12 times 15, and that will equal 180. Now, let me go back to this one. I should show you. I did length times width because a square is a rectangle, but I could have also done side squared. Okay, so let's write that right here. I could have also done side squared. And side squared is the same as length times width because 8 squared is also 64. Now I'm going to add these together, 64 plus 180, and that will give me 244 yards squared. Okay, we're going to come back to the perimeter. Let's just go over all the areas first. So again, this one I'm going to divide the figure up into 2 rectangles. Okay, we have a length of 7 here and a width of 10. And here we have a width of 4, but we don't know what the length is. But if we look over here, the whole length is 12, and I know this and this together will be 12. So I could do 12 minus 7, which is 5 feet. Okay, and I don't need this side for the area, but I will need it for the perimeter. So let's go ahead and figure out what it is. And I can do 10 minus 4, which is 6 feet. Okay. So now we're going to write area equals length times width. And we have 7 times 10 for this one. And that gives us 70. And we can go ahead and write that in here. And then for the next one, we have a length of 5 and a width of 4. So we can do 5 times, length times width. And we can do 5 times 4, which is 20. And now we are going to combine the two areas to get our total composite area. And 70 plus 20 is 90. Our label is feet squared. Let's go back and circle that one. And we can also write in what these two were so we can see it's 70 and 20. And we can go back here and put 64 and 180. Okay, again, we'll come back to that perimeter. Let's do the last two areas first. This one, once again, we're going to divide it into two rectangles. So we have our first one, we're going to do length times width. So we have a length of 3 and a width of 5. So 3 times 5 is 15. So we can put 15 in here. And then our other one, we have a missing part here. We know that the width is 2, but we don't know this one. So we're going to take this side minus this side. 6 minus 3 is 3. And I know this is correct because 3 plus 3 is 6. Now, I don't need this part for the area, but I will need it for the perimeter. And we can figure this out by taking 5 away from 2. And 5 minus 2 is 3. So let's go and calculate this area. We have a length of 3 and a width of 2. So 3 times 2 is 6. And now we're going to take those two areas and combine them for the composite. 15 plus 6 equals 21 feet squared. Okay, and let's skip to the last one. And I'm just going to divide it here. I could divide it here or I can divide it here. It doesn't matter. I'll still come up with the same area either way. Okay, this time we have the length and the width. And we have the length here, but we are missing the width. But if we know that this side is 12 and that this part right here is 4, then we can do 12 minus 4, which is 8 inches. And then this one's not labeled. And we don't need it for area, but we will need it for perimeter. So let me draw an arrow here. And I know that if this side is 14, and this side is 10, I can do 14 minus 10, which should be 4. Okay, area equals length times width. They're both rectangles, so I'm going to use the rectangle formula. I will do this one first. So the length is 10, the width is 4. So I'm going to do 10 times 4, which is 40. Let's write down the area formula again and do this one. The length is 14, and the width is 8. And 14 times 8 is 112. I need to combine those. And let's write 40 in here and 112 in here. And when I add those together, I get 152 inches squared. And let me go back to this one. We never put what this one was in here. This was 6, so 15 plus 6 is 21. Okay, now we're going to go back and do all the perimeters. And since these two are already up on my screen, let's go ahead and do these two first. So the first thing I want to do is make sure I count my sides so I know how many numbers I'm adding together. So here's one side, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So now I'm going to take them and add them up. So let's start with this one here. So we're going to do 3 plus 5 plus 6. And remember, I need 6 numbers, plus 2 plus 3 plus 3. And remember, it's always helpful to count the sides first. So you know how many numbers you're adding together, and when I add those together, I get 22 feet. Now notice I don't have squared here because I'm just adding up numbers, so the label is just feet. Okay, this one, let's count the sides. And we're going to start with this one. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So I'm going to be adding 6 numbers together. So 14 plus 12 plus 10 plus 4 plus 4 plus 8. And that's 6 numbers, so I add them up and I get 52 inches. Now let's go back and do 1 and 2 perimeter. So remember, we had already figured out the missing sides. So this was 8 yards, and this was, which one do we need here? Right here, this was 8 yards. Okay, so let's count them up and figure out how many sides we need. So I'm going to start here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So I need to make sure I add 6 numbers. So we're going to do 12 plus 7 plus 8 plus 8 plus 20 plus 15. And that will give me a total perimeter of 70 yards. And the last one, our missing sides, 12 minus 7 was 5 feet for that one, and then 10 minus 4 was 6, so this was 6 feet. So let's count them up, and I'll start here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So I need to make sure I add up 6 numbers. So we'll start here. 7 plus 10 plus 12 plus 4 plus 5 plus 6. And it might be helpful to use the strategy that I'm using. When you're counting them up, I'm just drawing a line over it, or you can scribble or make a mark so that you make sure you count all the sides and you're not missing any numbers. So that all adds up to 44 feet. That concludes our notes on composite area and perimeter of squares and rectangles. I hope you have a great day.